Lisa never thought her life would turn into something from a movie. 3 months ago, she was running her small bookkeeping business, helping local shops with their accounts. Now she was sitting in a stranger's tiny apartment, watching him check the locks for the third time in an hour. The stranger was David, a private detective who used to work for the police. He had thick brown hair that always looked messy, like he ran his hands through it when he was thinking. His apartment was small, just one room with a kitchen area, a bathroom, and a couch that turned into a bed. The walls were bare except for one photo of mountains and a calendar from last year. "You can stop looking at me like I'm going to hurt you," David said without turning around. He was still checking the window locks. "If I wanted to do something bad, I wouldn't have brought you here." Lisa pulled her jacket tight around herself. "How do I know that? Yesterday you were following me around town. Today you're telling me we're on the same side." David finally turned to face her. His eyes were tired, with dark circles underneath. "Because yesterday I thought you were just someone who took money and ran away. Today I know the truth." The truth was complicated. Lisa's business partner, Tony, had been stealing money from their clients for months. When Lisa found out and threatened to tell the police, Tony got scared, really scared. Scared enough to hire dangerous people to make sure Lisa couldn't talk. "Tony hired me to find you after you disappeared," David explained, sitting down on the other end of the couch. He kept his distance, which Lisa appreciated. "He told me you stole from your clients and ran away with their money. Said he just wanted to get the money back and clear his name." Lisa remembered that day clearly. She had been going through the books when she noticed something wrong. Numbers that didn't add up. Money going to accounts she had never seen before. When she confronted Tony, he had laughed and told her she was seeing things. But Lisa was good with numbers. She knew she wasn't wrong. "I started digging deeper," she said, her voice quiet. "I found bank statements he thought he had hidden. Wire transfers to accounts in different names. He had been stealing for almost a year." "What happened when you confronted him?" Lisa closed her eyes, remembering. "He got angry, really angry. Started yelling about how I didn't understand business. How sometimes you have to be creative with money. Then he got quiet, which was worse. He told me I better forget what I saw, or I might have an accident." That night, Lisa had packed a bag and left town. She didn't know where to go, so she drove to her aunt's house 3 hours away. She thought she would be safe there, but Tony found her anyway. She saw the same car parked outside the house for 3 days. That's when she knew she had to keep running. "I followed you for 2 weeks, David said. "You're not very good at hiding. By the way, you use your credit card too much, and you always park in the same spot at every hotel." "Thanks for the tips," Lisa said, trying to sound brave even though her hands were shaking. David's expression softened. "Look, I know this is scary, but I started asking questions about Tony, and I didn't like the answers I got. The guy has connections to some very unpleasant people, people who solve problems by making them disappear." Lisa felt cold all over. "What kind of people?" "The kind you don't want to meet." "When I realized Tony had lied to me about everything, I knew I had to make a choice, help him find you, or help you stay safe." "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." David was quiet for a moment. He looked at his hands, then at the window, then back at her. "Because I've made mistakes before. Big ones. I let someone get hurt because I believed the wrong person. I won't do that again." There was something in his voice that made Lisa believe him. Not completely. She wasn't ready for that yet, but enough to stay in his apartment instead of running again. "So what happens now?" she asked. "Now we figure out how to prove Tony is the thief, not you. And we stay alive while we do it." The apartment felt even smaller when Lisa realized she might be stuck there for a while. David showed her where everything was: the bathroom, the tiny kitchen with just enough room for one person, the closet that barely fit his clothes, the couch pulled out into a bed that took up most of the floor space. "I'll sleep on the floor," David said quickly when he saw her looking at the bed. "You take the bed. I've slept in worse places." Lisa nodded, but she felt weird about it. This man was protecting her from people who wanted to hurt her, and she was taking his bed. It didn't seem fair. That first night was strange. David gave her some of his clothes to sleep in, a clean t-shirt and sweatpants that were too big for her. She could hear him moving around in the dark, trying to get comfortable on the hard floor. Every little sound made her jump, a car door closing outside, footsteps in the hallway, the building settling. "You okay?" David whispered after she sat up suddenly at the sound of someone's TV turning on upstairs. "Just nervous," she whispered. Back, "They don't know about this place. You're safe here." But safe felt relative when you were sharing a tiny space with a stranger, even one who was trying to help you. Lisa stared at the ceiling and wondered how her quiet life had become so complicated 3 days ago. Her biggest worry was whether Mrs. Chen's restaurant books would balance. Now she was hiding from people who might want to hurt her, sleeping in a private detective's bed while he slept on the floor. She could hear David's breathing in the dark, steady and calm, somehow. That made her feel a little better, at least. She wasn't alone. Morning came too soon and too bright. David was already awake, making coffee in the tiny kitchen. He had dark stubble on his face, and his hair was sticking up in the back. He looked tired but alert, like he hadn't really slept. "Coffee?" he asked, holding up a mug. Lisa nodded and took it gratefully. The coffee was strong and bitter, but it was warm and she needed that. "So what's the plan?" she asked. David sat down across from her at the small table that folded out from the wall. "First, we need to prove Tony stole the money. Do you have copies of any of the documents you found?" Lisa shook her head. "Everything was on my computer at the office. Tony probably destroyed it all by now. Maybe. But banks keep records, and people like Tony usually aren't as smart as they think they are. He had to leave a trail somewhere." They spent the morning making lists, bank names, account numbers Lisa could remember, dates when she noticed money missing, clients who might have been affected. David wrote everything down in neat handwriting, asking questions that made Lisa remember details she had forgotten. By lunchtime, Lisa was feeling something she hadn't felt in weeks: hope. Maybe they really could prove Tony was the thief. Maybe she could get her life back. Then David's phone rang. The phone call changed everything. David's face went pale as he listened to whoever was on the other end. Lisa watched him pace the small kitchen, his free hand running through his messy hair like it always did when he was worried. "Yeah, I understand," David said into the phone. "Thanks for the warning." He hung up and stood there for a moment, staring at the floor. "What happened?" Lisa asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. David looked at her with those tired eyes. "That was my friend at the police station. Tony knows I switched sides. He's telling everyone I took money from him to help you escape." Lisa felt her stomach drop. "What does that mean?" "It means they're looking for both of us now. Tony's people think I betrayed them, and the police think I'm helping a thief." David sat down heavily on the couch. "We can't trust anyone except each other." The next few days were the strangest of Lisa's life. She and David barely left the apartment. They had food delivered and paid cash so no one could track their credit cards. David taught her how to stay away from windows and how to check if someone was following her. Lisa had never thought about these things before, but now they seemed like the most important skills in the world. Living in such a small space with someone you barely knew was awkward in ways Lisa hadn't expected. David was neat, but he had habits that took getting used to. He always left his coffee cup in exactly the same spot on the counter. He checked all the locks before going to bed, even though he had already checked them an hour before. He talked to himself quietly when he was thinking through a problem. Lisa discovered she had habits too. She organized everything: the few groceries they had, David's books, even his collection of old newspapers. She hummed when she was nervous, which was most of the time. She always washed her dishes immediately after eating, even though David told her it was okay to leave them. "You don't have to clean everything," he said one morning, watching her scrub a plate that was already clean. "It helps me think," she replied. "When everything around me is messy, my brain feels messy too." David nodded like he understood. "My ex-wife used to say the same thing. She said I lived like a college student." It was the first time David had mentioned being married. Lisa wanted to ask more, but something in his expression told her not to push. They developed routines without really talking about them. David made coffee in the morning while Lisa folded up the bed. Lisa made simple dinners while David worked on his laptop, trying to find information about Tony's business dealings. They took turns using the tiny bathroom, always knocking first. Even though they could hear if someone was inside, the sleeping situation was still weird. Lisa felt guilty every night watching David arrange blankets on the hard floor. His back was starting to hurt. She could tell because he stretched and winced when he thought she wasn't looking. "This is ridiculous," she said one evening after. David had spent 10 minutes trying to find a comfortable position on the floor. "The bed is big enough for 2 people. We're both adults." David stopped moving. "Lisa, I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "Because you think I can't trust you, or because you think you can't trust yourself." The question hung in the air between them. Lisa was surprised she had been so direct, but living in fear for weeks had made her care less about being polite. "Both. Maybe," David said quietly. "Look, I know you're a good person. You could have turned me over to Tony weeks ago. You could have just walked away. But you didn't." Lisa pulled back the covers on one side of the bed. "I trust you, and my back hurts from watching you sleep on that floor." That night, they slept on opposite sides of the bed with a careful space between them. Lisa lay awake for a long time, very aware of David's breathing beside her. But it wasn't scary. It was actually comforting to know someone was there, someone who would protect her if something bad happened. David was awake too. She could tell because his breathing wasn't deep and even like it was when he slept. After a while, he spoke into the darkness. "Why did you become an accountant?" The question was so normal, so far from their current situation, that Lisa almost laughed. "I like numbers. They always make sense. 2 plus 2 is always 4. No matter what else is happening in the world." "That must be nice," David said. "In my line of work, nothing is ever that simple." "What made you want to be a detective?" David was quiet for so long that Lisa thought he had fallen asleep. Then he said, "I wanted to help people." "Stupid, right?" "It's not stupid. You are helping people. You're helping me." "Yeah, but look where it got you." Hiding in a tiny apartment, afraid to go outside, Lisa turned onto her side to face him. Even though she could barely see him in the dark, David, 3 weeks ago I was alone and terrified. Tony's people were getting closer every day, and I didn't know who to trust. Now I have someone on my side, someone who believes me. That's not nothing. They talked quietly for another hour, sharing stories about their lives before everything got complicated. David told her about growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone else's business. Lisa talked about her parents, who had died in a car accident when she was in college, and how she had built her business from nothing. "I worked so hard to make something of myself," she said, "and Tony destroyed it all in one day." "We'll get it back," David said. "Your reputation, your business, all of it, I promise." Lisa wanted to believe him, but promises felt dangerous when your whole world could change with one phone call. The next morning, David woke up first. Lisa opened her eyes to find him already dressed, standing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low and urgent. "How long ago?" he was saying. "Are you sure it was them?" Lisa sat up, suddenly wide awake. David's face was grim when he hung up. "They found your aunt's house," he said. 3 men in a black car, asking questions. "About you yesterday. Your aunt told them she hadn't seen you, but they know I was there." Lisa finished. Her hand started shaking. "They're getting closer." David sat down on the edge of the bed. "Hey, look at me. They don't know about this place. You're still safe here. For how long? What happens when they find us? They won't find us. And even if they do, I won't let them hurt you." Lisa looked at David's serious face, his determined eyes, and felt something shift inside her chest. This man had given up his job, his safety, maybe his future, to protect her. He barely knew her, but he was willing to risk everything to help her. Why? she asked. "Why are you doing all this for me?" David's expression softened. "Because someone has to. And because I care what happens to you." The words hung between them, heavier than they should have been. Lisa realized that somewhere between the fear and the cramped apartment and the shared meals, she had started caring about David too, more than she should have. More than was smart when their whole situation was temporary and dangerous. But caring about someone wasn't something you could turn off, even when it was complicated. Lisa couldn't sleep anymore. Every night she would lie in bed listening to every sound, cars passing by, footsteps in the hallway, even the old building creaking. What used to feel like a safe hiding place now felt like a trap waiting to close. Around them, David noticed. He always noticed everything. "You're doing it again," he said one morning, watching her stare out the window from behind the curtain. "You've been checking that window every 10 minutes for the past hour. I can't help it," Lisa said, letting the curtain fall back into place. "What if they're out there? What if they're watching us right now?" David walked over and gently moved her away from the window. "If they knew where we were, they would have already made their move. These aren't patient people." But Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that their time was running out. It had been 5 weeks since David brought her to his apartment. 5 weeks of living like prisoners, ordering food deliveries, never going outside except when absolutely necessary. 5 weeks of sharing the same small space, the same bed, the same fears. The nightmares had started in the 3rd week. Lisa would dream about Tony finding them, about men in dark clothes breaking down the apartment door. She would wake up gasping, her heart racing so fast she thought it might explode. The first few times, she tried to be quiet about it, not wanting to wake David, but he was a light sleeper, and he always knew. "Bad dream again?" he would ask softly in the darkness. Lisa would nod, even though he couldn't see her. Sometimes David would talk to her until she calmed down. His voice low and steady like a radio playing in another room. He would tell her stories about cases he had worked on, about the time he got lost in the mountains and had to sleep under the stars, about his grandmother who made the best apple pie in 3 counties. "Why are you being so nice to me?" Lisa asked one night after a particularly bad dream. "You could have just dropped me off at a police station and walked away." David was quiet for a moment. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes, because I know what it feels like to be afraid and alone. And because I like having you here." The confession hung between them in the dark. Lisa felt something warm spread through her chest, something that had nothing to do with fear or danger. "I like being here too," she whispered back. "Is that crazy? Probably. This whole situation is crazy." But it didn't feel crazy when David would make her laugh during their long days stuck inside. He did terrible impressions of people on TV shows. He told jokes that were so bad they were actually funny. He had a way of making even their cramped, stressful situation feel almost normal sometimes. It also didn't feel crazy when Lisa caught herself watching David work at his laptop, noticing the way he concentrated, the way he bit his lip when he was thinking hard about something. She liked the way he made coffee in the morning, humming quietly to himself. She liked the way he always asked if she was warm enough, if she needed anything, if she was okay. The turning point came on a Thursday night. Lisa had been having the same nightmare again. Tony and his men breaking down the door. David trying to protect her, but not being strong enough. She woke up shaking and crying, unable to catch her breath. Hey, it's okay," David said, sitting up immediately. "You're safe. I'm right here." But this time, talking wasn't enough. The fear felt too big, too overwhelming. Without thinking about it, Lisa reached for David's hand in the darkness. "I'm so scared," she whispered. "I'm so tired of being scared. All the time." David squeezed her hand. "I know. I'm scared too." "You are. Of course I am. I'm scared they'll find us. I'm scared I won't be able to protect you. I'm scared of what happens when this is all over and you don't need me anymore." Lisa turned to face him, even though she could barely see him in the dark. "David, you don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I know this situation. is weird. I know you probably feel like you have to be grateful to me or something, but you don't. When this is over, when you're safe, you can go back to your life and forget all about me. What if I don't want to forget about you? The question surprised them both. Lisa hadn't planned to say it, but now that the words were out there, she realized they were true. Somewhere between the shared meals and the quiet conversations and the feeling of safety she had. When David was near, she had started caring about him in a way that had nothing to do with gratitude. Lisa, David's voice was soft, uncertain. I know it's complicated, she said. I know the timing is terrible and the situation is impossible, but I can't pretend I don't feel something for you. David was quiet for a long time. Lisa started to worry that she had said too much, that she had made everything awkward between them. Then she felt him move closer to her in the bed. I care about you too, he said. More than I should. More than is probably smart. Why isn't it smart? Because I'm supposed to be protecting you, not falling for you. Because you're vulnerable and scared and depending on me to keep you safe. Because when people are in danger, sometimes they think they feel things that aren't real. Lisa reached out and touched David's face in the darkness, feeling the rough stubble on his cheek. Do you think what I'm feeling isn't real? I don't know what's real anymore, David admitted. All I know is that I look forward to waking up next to you every morning. I like the way you organize everything when you're nervous. I like listening to you hum when you're cooking. I like that you trust me enough to let me take care of you. And I like the way you check the locks every night because it makes me feel safe, Lisa said. I like your terrible jokes and your messy hair and the way you always make sure I eat enough. I like that you gave up everything to help me, even though you barely knew me. They were lying close enough now that Lisa could feel David's breath on her face. The apartment was quiet around them, but for once the silence didn't feel scary. It felt peaceful. What happens now? David asked. I don't know, Lisa said honestly. But I know I don't want to spend whatever time we have left pretending I don't care about you. When David kissed her, it was gentle and careful, like he was afraid she might disappear. Lisa kissed him back, pouring all of her gratitude and fear and growing love into that one moment. It tasted like coffee and hope and the promise of something better than just surviving. They held each other in the darkness, talking quietly about everything and nothing. David told her about the mountains he wanted to show her someday, about the small cabin his grandfather had built with his own hands. Lisa talked about her dream of opening a bookstore, combining her love of numbers with her love of books. When this is over, David said, when you're safe and Tony is in jail where he belongs, what's the first thing you want to do? Lisa thought about it. I want to go for a walk outside without looking over my shoulder. I want to buy groceries and cook a real meal in a real kitchen. I want to call my friends and tell them I'm okay. She paused. What about you? I want to take you on a proper date, David said. Somewhere nice, where we can sit across from each other at a real table and you can tell me all the things about yourself that I don't know yet. That sounds perfect, Lisa said, smiling in the dark. They fell asleep like that, holding each other, dreaming of a future where they weren't hiding from anyone. For the first time in weeks, Lisa slept peacefully, no nightmares disturbing her. Rest stopped the next morning. David's phone rang again. But this time, when he answered it, his expression wasn't grim. It was excited. We got him, he said after hanging up. Lisa. We got him? Lisa's heart jumped when she heard David's excited voice. But then she saw his face change as he listened to more of the phone call. The hope in his eyes faded, replaced by something that looked like worry. Wait, what do you mean he's missing? David asked into the phone. He started pacing again, that familiar hand running through his hair. How long has he been gone? Lisa sat up in bed, pulling the blanket around herself. The excitement she had felt just moments before turned into a cold knot in her stomach. Okay. Thanks for letting me know, David said finally. Yeah, we'll be careful. He hung up and stood there looking at the phone. What happened? Lisa asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. David sat down on the edge of the bed. His shoulders slumped. Tony disappeared. The police went to arrest him this morning. but his house was empty. Looks like he packed up and left in a hurry. So, he's gone. That's good, right? If he's running away, maybe he'll leave us alone. David shook his head. People like Tony don't just run away and give up. If anything, this makes him more dangerous. He knows the police are onto him now. He's got nothing left to lose. The next few days were the worst yet. David barely slept, getting up every hour to check the windows and doors. He made Lisa stay away from all the windows, even during the day. They stopped having food delivered because David was worried about strangers coming to the door. This is crazy, Lisa said on the third day. They were eating canned soup for lunch because it was all they had left. We can't live like this forever. I know, David said, but until the police find Tony, we don't have a choice. What if they never find him? What if he's already left the country? David looked at her across the tiny table. Then we'll figure something else out. Maybe witness protection. Maybe we'll just have to disappear and start over somewhere new. The idea of starting over somewhere new with David didn't sound terrible to Lisa, but she could see the worry in his eyes. He was blaming himself for their situation getting worse. This is my fault, he said that night as they lay in bed. I should have seen this coming. I should have made sure the police moved faster. David, you couldn't have known Tony would run. I should have protected you better. Lisa turned to face him in the darkness. You have protected me. I'm alive because of you. I'm safe because of you. You're trapped in a tiny apartment, afraid to go outside, eating soup from cans. How's that? Safe because you're here with me, Lisa said simply. As long as you're here, I know everything will be okay. But even as she said the words, Lisa wasn't sure she believed them. The fear was getting to both of them. David jumped at every sound. Lisa found herself checking the locks even though David had already checked them. They were both on edge, snapping at each other over little things. Their first real fight happened on a Thursday. Lisa had been reorganizing David's bookshelf for the third time that week when he finally lost his patience. Can you please stop moving things around? He said, his voice sharper than usual. I can't find anything anymore. I'm just trying to help, Lisa said, hurt by his tone. I don't need help. I need you to just sit still for 5 minutes. Sit still? I've been sitting still for 6 weeks. I'm going crazy in here. You think I'm not going crazy too? You think this is easy for me? They stared at each other across the small room, both breathing hard. Lisa felt tears starting to form in her eyes. Maybe I should just turn myself in, she said quietly. Tell the police everything and hope they believe me. At least then you could have your life back. David's expression changed immediately. The anger left his face, replaced by something that looked like panic. Don't you dare, he said, moving closer to her. Don't you dare even think about doing something like that. Why not? You said yourself that Tony is more dangerous now. What if he finds us? What if something happens to you because of me? Lisa, listen to me. David took her hands in his. I chose to help you. I chose to bring you here. I chose to care about you. That's my decision, not yours. But your life was simpler before me. You had your work, your apartment to yourself. No one trying to hurt you. My life was empty before you, David said, his voice soft but firm. I went to work, came home, watched TV, went to bed. That's not living. That's just existing. These past 6 weeks, even with all the fear and stress, have been the most real I've felt in years. Lisa looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. I feel the same way, she admitted. I've never felt as close to anyone as I feel to you. But I'm scared that something will happen to you because of me. And I'm scared that something will happen to you because I'm not good enough at protecting you. David said, but we can't let fear make our decisions for us. They held each other then, both apologizing for the fight, both admitting how scared they really were. The apartment felt smaller than ever, but somehow having everything out in the open made it feel less suffocating. The breakthrough came 2 days later. David was on his laptop, following up on some leads about Tony's business connections, when he suddenly sat up straight. Lisa, come look at this, he said, his voice excited again. Lisa hurried over to see what he had found. On the screen was a bank statement showing a wire transfer from one of Tony's accounts to an account in Mexico. He's planning to leave the country, David said. But look at the date on this transfer. It was made yesterday. What does that mean? It means he's still here. He's still in the city, probably getting ready to run. And if he's still here, we can catch him, Lisa finished. David nodded, but his expression was serious. There's just one problem. To get the evidence we need to prove he's the thief, we need to get into his office. And that means you'll have to help. Lisa felt her stomach drop. Me? Why me? Because you know his computer system. You know where he keeps his files. The police can't get a warrant fast enough. By the time they do, he'll be gone. But if we get caught, it's over for both of us, David said honestly. But if we don't try, Tony gets away with everything. He keeps the money he stole, and you spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Lisa thought about it. The idea of leaving the safety of the apartment terrified her, but the idea of living in fear forever terrified her more. Okay, she said. Let's do it. David looked surprised. Are you sure? No, Lisa said with a shaky laugh. I'm not sure about anything anymore. But I trust you, and I'm tired of hiding. They spent the rest of the day planning. David would create a distraction to get Tony out of his office. Lisa would go in, copy the files they needed, and get out. It was simple in theory. But they both knew how easily things could go wrong. The night before they were supposed to do it, neither of them could sleep. They lay in bed holding each other, both thinking about all the things that could happen. Promise me something, Lisa said into the darkness. What? If something goes wrong tomorrow, if we get separated or caught, or whatever, promise me you'll be careful. Promise me you won't do anything dangerous to try to save me. David was quiet for a long time. I can't promise that, he said finally. David, no, Lisa. I can't promise to just walk away if you're in trouble. I won't do that. Lisa knew there was no point in arguing. She wouldn't walk away if David was in trouble either. Then promise me we'll be smart about it. She said, promise me we'll stick to the plan. I promise we'll try. It wasn't the promise Lisa wanted, but it was the best she was going to get. Tomorrow, everything would change. Either they would finally have the evidence to clear her name and put Tony in jail, or everything would fall apart. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Lisa tried not to think about which outcome was more likely. The morning came too quickly. Lisa woke up to find David already dressed, checking his equipment one more time. He had a small camera, a USB drive, and his phone. It didn't look like much to change their entire lives, but it was all they had. You ready for this? He asked when he saw her sitting up. Lisa nodded, even though she didn't feel ready at all. Let's get it over with. The plan was simple. David would call Tony's office pretending to be a potential client with a lot of money to invest. While Tony was distracted on the phone, Lisa would slip in through the back door that she knew was usually unlocked during business hours. She would copy the files from Tony's computer and get out before he finished the call. They drove to Tony's office in David's old car, both of them quiet and tense. Lisa's hands were shaking as she thought about seeing Tony again, about being in the same building as the man who had tried to destroy her life. Remember, David said as they parked a block away from the office, get in, get the files, get out. Don't try to be a hero. If anything feels wrong, just run. What if he sees me? He won't. I'll keep him busy for at least 10 minutes. That's more than enough time. Lisa took a deep breath. Okay, let's do this. David squeezed her hand. I'll see you in 15 minutes. Lisa watched David walk toward the front of the building while she went round to the back. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. The back door was unlocked. Just like she remembered, she slipped inside and made her way to Tony's office. Everything looked the same as it had 2 months ago. Tony's desk was still messy, covered with papers and coffee cups. His computer was on, the screen showing his email. Lisa sat down at his desk and plugged in the USB drive David had given her. She could hear David's voice from the front office, talking loudly about wanting to invest a large sum of money. Tony sounded interested, asking lots of questions. Lisa tried to focus on copying the files, but her hands kept shaking. The files were all there, just like she remembered. Bank statements showing money being moved to accounts Tony had set up under fake names. Receipts for expensive purchases he had made with stolen money. Email conversations with people who helped him hide the money. It was everything they needed to prove he was the thief. Lisa was almost finished copying the files when she heard something that made her blood turn cold. Tony's voice was getting closer to his office. "Let me just grab some paperwork to show you," he was saying. Lisa frantically tried to eject the USB drive, but the computer was still copying files. She could hear Tony's footsteps in the hallway, getting closer. The progress bar on the screen seemed to be moving in slow motion. The door opened just as the files finished copying. Lisa grabbed the USB drive and turned around to see Tony standing in the doorway. His face twisted with anger. Well, he said, his voice deadly quiet. "Look what we have here." Lisa tried to run past him, but Tony grabbed her arm. "Where do you think you're going? And what did you take from my computer?" "Let go of me," Lisa said, trying to pull free. "I don't think so. You've caused me enough trouble already." Tony's grip on her arm tightened. "Did you really think you could just walk in here and steal from me? You're the thief," Lisa said, surprised by how strong her own voice sounded. "I'm just taking back what you stole." Tony laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "No one's going to believe you. By tomorrow, I'll be in another country with more money than I could spend in a lifetime. And you'll be—" He didn't finish the sentence, but Lisa understood the threat. Fear shot through her, but it was mixed with something else, anger. At Tony for stealing from innocent people. Anger at him for making her live in fear. Anger at him for threatening David. "You won't get away with this," she said. "Watch me." That's when David appeared in the doorway behind Tony. Lisa had never been so happy to see anyone in her life. "Let her go," David said. His voice calm but dangerous. Tony spun around, still holding Lisa's arm. "The boyfriend arrives. How touching." "I said let her go." "Or what? You'll call the police?" "Go ahead. By the time they get here, you'll both have had a very unfortunate accident." David took a step closer. "There are 3 police cars outside. Right now, they followed you here from your house. It's over, Tony." Tony's face went pale. "You're lying." "Am I? Look out the window." Tony hesitated, then moved toward the window, dragging Lisa with him. When he looked outside and saw the police cars, his grip on Lisa loosened just enough for her to pull free. "You set me up," Tony said, his voice full of rage. "You set yourself up," David replied. "We just gave the police the evidence they needed to find you." The next few minutes were a blur. Police officers came into the office and arrested Tony while he shouted threats and accusations. Lisa gave them the USB drive with all the evidence. David held her hand while they answered questions and gave their statements. It was over. After 2 months of hiding and fear, it was finally over. 2 weeks later, Lisa was back in her own apartment. For the first time since everything started, it felt strange to be in her own space again. To be able to go outside whenever she wanted, to not constantly look over her shoulder. David was there too, helping her clean up the mess Tony's people had made when they searched her place. They worked quietly, both of them trying to figure out what came next. "So," David said as they finished putting books back on Lisa's bookshelf, "what happens now?" It was the question Lisa had been afraid to ask during their time hiding together. They had fallen in love, but that was under extreme circumstances. Now that they were safe, now that Lisa didn't need David's protection anymore, would their feelings survive in the real world? "I don't know," Lisa said honestly. "Do you regret it, any of it?" David looked at her with those same tired eyes that had comforted her through so many frightening nights. "The only thing I regret is that it took a situation like this for us to meet," Lisa smiled. "So what do we do now?" "Well," David said, moving closer to her, "I believe someone promised me a proper date once this was all over." "That's right, you did say something about that. So, Lisa Chen," David said, taking her hands in his, "would you like to go to dinner with me tomorrow night? somewhere nice, where we can sit across from each other at a real table and you can tell me all the things about yourself that I don't know yet." Lisa laughed, remembering the conversation they had in his tiny apartment. "I'd love to." "Good, because I have a lot more stories to tell you about my grandmother's apple pie." 6 months later, Lisa was running a successful bookkeeping business. Again, this time with proper security measures and better instincts about who to trust. David had started his own private investigation company, specializing in financial crimes. They worked together sometimes, combining her skills with numbers and his skills with investigation. They kept David's apartment, even though they spent most of their time at Lisa's place. Sometimes they would go back there just to remember how far they had come. The tiny space that had once felt like a prison now felt like the place where their real life together had begun. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Tony had never tried to frame me?" Lisa asked. One evening, as they sat on David's old couch, "Sometimes," David said. "But then I remember that everything happens for a reason. Even the bad things can lead to good things if you're brave enough to see them through." Lisa curled up next to him, feeling safe and loved and grateful for the strange circumstances that had brought them together. "I love you," she said. "I love you too," David replied, kissing the top of her head. "Even if you do still reorganize my bookshelves when you're nervous," Lisa laughed. "Some things never change. Thank goodness for that," David said, and Lisa knew he was right. The best things in life were worth keeping, whether they came from danger or peace, from fear or love, from the smallest apartment or the biggest dreams.